The United States, a land of vast landscapes and bustling cities, holds a silent, somber truth. Thousands of families across the nation live with the agonizing uncertainty of a missing loved one. These unsolved cases, shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions, cast a long shadow over communities, leaving behind a legacy of pain and unanswered questions. Among these countless stories, one name echoes with a renewed sense of resolution, a name that was once synonymous with the despair of a cold case: Sarah Collins. Sarah, barely out of her teens and brimming with the optimism of early adulthood, was the quintessential small-town girl. She possessed a radiant smile and an infectious laugh. She was a dreamer, with aspirations as boundless as the open road. Her spirit was adventurous, her heart yearned to explore the hidden corners of America. A recent graduate, Sarah worked tirelessly at the local diner, saving every penny to fuel her wanderlust. She envisioned a future filled with experiences, a tapestry woven with the threads of countless journeys. The allure of the open road beckoned her. Sarah meticulously planned a cross-country road trip, a grand adventure that would etch itself into the very fabric of her being. She pored over maps, tracing routes that would lead her through sun-drenched deserts, majestic mountain ranges, and vibrant coastal cities. California was her ultimate destination, a land of sunshine and endless possibilities. She anticipated visiting iconic landmarks, immersing herself in diverse cultures, and creating memories that would last a lifetime. The trip was scheduled for 3 months, enough time, she thought, to see the country. The last confirmed sighting of Sarah was on a crisp autumn morning in October 1997. She was seen fueling her reliable, if somewhat aged, blue Ford Mustang at a gas station just outside her hometown. The cashier, a friendly woman named Martha, remembered Sarah vividly. Martha recalled Sarah's excitement, her detailed explanation of her planned route, and her vibrant energy. Sarah was wearing a denim jacket, jeans, and her favorite pair of worn-out cowboy boots. She had a map spread out on the hood of the car and appeared ready to go. The first hours after Sarah was expected to check in were dismissed with gentle assumptions. Perhaps she was out of range, perhaps she was having too much fun. But as the hours turned into days, and the silence stretched on, worry began to gnaw at the edges of her family's composure. Small concern escalated into a creeping dread. Her parents, normally beacons of calm, became increasingly anxious. Phone calls went unanswered, messages unread. The joyous anticipation that had filled their home was replaced by an unsettling emptiness. Days turned into a week, and still no word. The family, consumed by fear and uncertainty, made the agonizing decision to file a formal missing person report. The local law enforcement, initially treating the case as a runaway situation, slowly began to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. But the initial response felt slow, almost dismissive. And that left Sarah's family and friends facing the unbearable: something was terribly, terribly wrong. The investigation into Sarah's disappearance began with a flurry of activity, a desperate attempt to piece together the fragments of her last known movements. Law enforcement immediately launched into action, conducting interviews with those who knew Sarah best. Her family, naturally, were the first to be questioned, their grief-stricken faces etched with worry and a desperate plea for answers. Friends, too, were interviewed, each conversation a painful exercise in retracing steps, searching for any overlooked detail that might shed light on her vanishing act. Investigators probed into Sarah's personal life, seeking any potential romantic interests, recent conflicts, or anything that might suggest a reason for her sudden disappearance. Every stone was turned, every avenue explored, in those initial, frantic days. A crucial aspect of the early investigation focused on locating Sarah's vehicle. The car, a blue sedan she cherished, was considered a vital piece of the puzzle. Authorities meticulously searched along the planned route of her road trip, paying close attention to the vast and varied landscapes she would have traversed. From the sun-drenched highways of the Midwest to the winding mountain roads of the West, every mile was scrutinized. Aerial searches were conducted, scanning the terrain from above, while ground teams combed through rest stops, roadside diners, and any place Sarah might have stopped along the way. The environment itself became a silent witness, its rugged beauty juxtaposed with the chilling reality of her absence. As the investigation unfolded, witness accounts began to surface. People recalled seeing a young woman matching Sarah's description at various locations along her route. Some remembered her vehicle, while others recalled fleeting interactions, a brief conversation at a gas station, a shared smile at a roadside attraction. However, the reliability and relevance of these accounts varied greatly. Some proved to be credible leads, providing valuable insights into Sarah's journey. Others were less certain, clouded by time or inconsistencies, adding to the complexity of the investigation. Each account had to be carefully evaluated, its veracity weighed against the growing uncertainty surrounding Sarah's fate. Despite the initial flurry of activity, the investigation soon encountered a frustrating roadblock: unanswered questions. A growing list of inquiries loomed over the case, each one a testament to the elusive nature of Sarah's disappearance. Where was her vehicle? What had happened to her along her route? Were there any unknown factors at play? The lack of concrete evidence only deepened the mystery. Potential suspects and persons of interest emerged, their backgrounds scrutinized, their alibis questioned. But without solid evidence, the investigation remained stagnant, mired in speculation and uncertainty. The frustration mounted, both within the law enforcement community and among Sarah's loved ones, as the hope of finding her dwindled with each passing day. The local and regional media seized upon the story of Sarah's disappearance, amplifying the urgency and raising public awareness. Newspapers, television stations, and radio programs broadcasted updates on the investigation, sharing Sarah's photograph and appealing to the public for information. The media attention played a dual role, both aiding and complicating the investigation. On one hand, it generated leads and kept Sarah's story alive in the public consciousness. On the other hand, it intensified the pressure on law enforcement and heightened the emotional strain on Sarah's family, who were constantly reminded of their agonizing loss. The media became an inescapable presence, a constant reminder of the unsolved mystery that had gripped the community. As weeks turned into months, the investigation slowed to a crawl, its progress hampered by the lack of new leads and the absence of tangible evidence. The initial hope and determination gradually gave way to frustration and despair. Sarah's family and friends struggled to cope with the uncertainty, their lives forever altered by her unexplained disappearance. The community, once united in its search for answers, began to lose hope that Sarah would ever be found. The case, once a high-priority investigation, gradually faded from the headlines, relegated to the annals of unsolved mysteries. The slow passage of time served only to deepen the wound, leaving Sarah's loved ones trapped in a perpetual state of grief and uncertainty. The investigation had stalled, leaving a community heartbroken and a family forever searching for answers that seemed increasingly out of reach. Years drifted by, each one etching the unsolved mystery deeper into the fabric of the small town. Sarah's case, once a flurry of activity and media attention, gradually faded into the background, becoming another cold case statistic. The files, filled with interviews, evidence, and dead ends, were relegated to the archives, a stark reminder of the unanswered questions that lingered. The vibrant posters that once plastered every lamppost and storefront, showcasing Sarah's smiling face and pleading for information, were slowly peeled away by the elements, leaving behind ghostly outlines and faded memories. The passage of time, however, did not erase the pain. For Sarah's family, the absence remained a gaping wound, a constant ache that throbbed with each passing birthday, holiday, and milestone. The annual family gatherings were forever tinged with sadness, the empty chair a silent testament to their loss. The joy of celebrations was muted, overshadowed by the persistent question of what could have been. The community, too, felt the weight of the unsolved mystery, a shadow that darkened their collective spirit. The disappearance of Sarah Collins became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic settings. Despite the despair, Sarah was never forgotten. Each year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, a memorial service was held in the town square. Friends, family, and community members gathered to share memories, offer prayers, and reaffirm their commitment to finding answers. Candles flickered in the twilight, casting dancing shadows on the faces of those who mourned, each flame representing a flicker of hope that refused to be extinguished. The local newspaper ran a yearly article revisiting the case, a reminder that Sarah's story was still relevant and that the search for justice continued. The family never gave up hope, clinging to the belief that one day, the truth would be revealed. The cold case unit periodically reviewed Sarah's file, meticulously re-examining the evidence and exploring any new leads that might surface. But investigating a decades-old disappearance presented a unique set of challenges. Witnesses' memories faded, evidence deteriorated, and the original investigators had often moved on or retired. The trail had grown cold, making it increasingly difficult to piece together the events of that fateful day. Yet, the detectives assigned to the case persevered, driven by a sense of duty and a desire to bring closure to Sarah's family. Over the years, advancements in forensic technology and DNA analysis offered new possibilities for investigation. The cold case unit explored these avenues, hoping that a fresh look at the evidence might yield a breakthrough. They resubmitted samples for DNA testing, analyzed old photographs using enhanced imaging techniques, and consulted with forensic experts to reevaluate the crime scene. The hope was that even the smallest piece of overlooked evidence could unlock the mystery and finally bring Sarah home. The psychological impact of the unresolved case was profound, not only on Sarah's family and friends but also on the investigating officers. The detectives assigned to the case often became deeply invested in finding answers, carrying the weight of Sarah's disappearance with them long after they left the office. The inability to solve the mystery took its toll, leaving them feeling frustrated, helpless, and haunted by the image of a young woman whose life was tragically cut short. As the years turned into decades, hope slowly began to fade. The likelihood of finding Sarah alive diminished with each passing day, and the possibility of ever bringing her killer to justice seemed increasingly remote. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, Sarah's family refused to give up. They continued to advocate for her case, to raise awareness about missing persons, and to keep her memory alive, a testament to the enduring power of love and the unwavering determination to find closure, no matter how long it took. The mystery of Sarah's disappearance remained a painful enigma. The Cold Case Unit, decades later, decided it was time to revisit the dusty files and faded photographs. They knew the odds were stacked against them. Time was a thief, stealing memories and degrading evidence. But advancements in forensic science offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to see the case with fresh eyes and new tools. So, the team meticulously cataloged and re-examined every piece of evidence from the original investigation. The detectives began with the physical evidence, poring over crime scene photos, witness statements, and forensic reports. They scrutinized every detail, looking for anything that might have been overlooked or misinterpreted in the initial investigation. With renewed determination, the team decided to focus on the people who were present during the initial investigation, and some of them were dismissed or lacked sufficient evidence. Among those names was a man who had lived in the area at the time of Sarah's disappearance. He'd been questioned briefly, but his alibi seemed solid enough, and there wasn't any evidence to connect him directly to Sarah. He was a local handyman, known for his odd jobs around town, but who kept to himself. He seemed harmless enough, but there were a few things that made him look suspicious. As the Cold Case Unit dug deeper, they discovered that the suspect had a history of minor offenses, including a few altercations with women. It wasn't enough to raise alarm bells at the time, but, in retrospect, it painted a disturbing picture. There were whispers of a volatile temper, a tendency to become possessive and controlling in relationships. This information, coupled with the lingering unease surrounding his initial alibi, led the detectives to take a closer look. One of the key pieces of evidence was an old blanket found near where Sarah was last seen. It had been tested back in 1997, but the technology wasn't advanced enough to yield any definitive results. Now, with modern DNA analysis, the Cold Case Unit was able to extract a usable DNA sample from the blanket. The results were stunning. The DNA matched the suspect. The detectives also looked at the suspect's background, starting with his criminal history. The suspect had been arrested on a few occasions for minor offenses, but nothing that would suggest he was capable of such a heinous crime. However, there were rumors about his past that had never been fully investigated. The suspect moved around the time of Sarah's disappearance. His ties to Sarah were loose. They occasionally talked while Sarah was on her road trip. With the DNA evidence in hand, the Cold Case Unit decided to place the suspect under surveillance. They wanted to observe his behavior, see if he would reveal anything that might further incriminate him. The surveillance team followed him discreetly, noting his every move. He seemed to be living a normal life, working his job, spending time with his family, but there was something about his demeanor that made the detectives uneasy. He seemed constantly on edge, as if he were carrying a heavy burden. The tension in the air was palpable. The detectives knew they were on the verge of something big. The arrest warrant was a turning point, a culmination of years of doubt and renewed investigation. It was a tangible representation of hope, finally within reach. The detective, who had inherited the case years ago and dedicated countless hours to its review, felt the weight of responsibility as he signed the document. It was more than just a piece of paper. It was a promise to Sarah, to her family, and to a community that had long waited for answers. The arrest itself was carefully planned. The suspect, now aged and perhaps complacent, was taken by surprise at his home, early in the morning. There was no struggle, no dramatic chase scene. Just the quiet inevitability of justice finally catching up. He seemed bewildered, perhaps unable to fully comprehend the reason for the sudden intrusion. His reaction was a mixture of confusion and fear, a stark contrast to the emotions churning within the officers making the arrest. The news of the arrest spread like wildfire through the small town, a ripple effect of shock and disbelief. After so many years, many had resigned themselves to the fact that Sarah's disappearance would forever remain a mystery. The arrest shattered that resignation, replacing it with a cautious optimism, a hesitant belief that closure was finally possible. Conversations buzzed in coffee shops, at the grocery store, and on front porches, all centered on the same topic: Sarah Collins. The media descended upon the town, transforming its quiet streets into a chaotic scene of flashing cameras and hurried interviews. Reporters clamored for information, eager to piece together the narrative of a cold case finally solved. The suspect's residence became the focal point, surrounded by news vans and curious onlookers, all seeking a glimpse into the life of the man accused of such a heinous crime. The intense media scrutiny was both a blessing and a curse, raising awareness of the case but also threatening to overwhelm the already fragile community. The suspect's initial statements to law enforcement were guarded and evasive. He neither fully admitted nor denied involvement in Sarah's disappearance. He spoke in carefully constructed sentences, avoiding direct answers and deflecting blame. His demeanor was unsettling, a calculated calmness that hinted at a deeper, darker truth. The detectives, seasoned in the art of interrogation, recognized the signs of deception and pressed forward, determined to unravel his carefully constructed facade. Now, the community held its collective breath, awaiting the trial. The weight of anticipation was almost unbearable, a mixture of hope and fear. Hope that justice would finally be served, that Sarah's family would find some measure of peace, and that the truth would finally be revealed. But also fear that the case would fall apart, that the suspect would walk free, and that the mystery would continue to haunt them for generations to come. The trial loomed large on the horizon, a pivotal moment in the long and arduous journey towards closure. The entire town felt suspended in time, waiting for the scales of justice to finally balance. The memory of Sarah Collins, once a fading whisper, was now a roaring demand for truth and accountability. The pressure on the suspect intensified. The weight of the accumulating evidence, painstakingly gathered and meticulously analyzed, began to crush the carefully constructed facade they had maintained for 3 decades. Every new piece of information unearthed by the tireless investigators chipped away at their composure, exposing the cracks beneath. Sleepless nights were filled with the ghosts of the past, the memories of that fateful day replaying on an endless loop, each iteration more vivid and more damning than the last. The walls were closing in, the net tightening with each passing hour. Recognizing the inevitable, the suspect's legal team initiated negotiations with the prosecution. A plea bargain was floated, a desperate attempt to mitigate the consequences of their actions, to salvage what little remained of their life. The prosecutors, driven by the unwavering pursuit of justice for Sarah and her family, listened intently, weighing the potential benefits and drawbacks of such an agreement. A confession, a full and honest accounting of the events that led to Sarah's disappearance, was the key demand. The truth, after 30 years of silence, was the price of admission. Then, it happened. The confession. The dam finally broke, and the torrent of guilt and remorse spilled forth. The suspect, no longer able to bear the burden of their secret, admitted their involvement in Sarah's disappearance. They recounted the events of that day, the details emerging in a slow, agonizing stream of words. The when, the where, the how, each revelation a fresh wound, reopening the scars that had barely begun to heal. The motive, shrouded in mystery for so long, was finally revealed. It wasn't a meticulously planned crime, a calculated act of malice. It was, according to the confession, a moment of uncontrolled rage, a sudden eruption of anger that spiraled into tragedy. A heated argument, a clash of wills, and then, in a fleeting instant, a life was extinguished. The suspect claimed it was not premeditated, but an accident, a terrible mistake that haunted them every day since. But was it truly an accident? The investigators remained skeptical, questioning every detail, searching for inconsistencies that might expose a darker truth. The confession included a crucial piece of information: the location of Sarah's remains. After 30 years of searching, of endless speculation and unanswered prayers, the family could finally bring their daughter home. A wave of grief washed over the community as the news spread, a collective mourning for the lost years, the stolen future. But amidst the sorrow, there was also a sense of closure, a glimmer of hope that justice, however delayed, had finally been served. The emotional impact was profound. Sarah's family, friends, and the entire community were consumed by a mixture of grief, relief, and anger. The pain of loss was still raw, but now it was tempered by the knowledge that the truth had finally come to light. The discovery of Sarah's remains allowed them to properly mourn, to say goodbye, and to begin the long and arduous process of healing. The small town, forever marked by Sarah's disappearance, could finally begin to find a measure of peace. It was a somber victory, a bittersweet ending to a 30-year nightmare. The confession painted a grim picture. It revealed that Sarah, ever trusting and open to new experiences, had offered the suspect a ride. He'd initially presented himself as harmless, perhaps a fellow traveler down on his luck. The details that followed described a slow escalation, a chilling shift from friendly conversation to menacing control. The suspect, emboldened by Sarah's isolation on the open road, began making unwanted advances. Sarah, strong-willed and independent, firmly rejected him, unknowingly triggering a violent rage. The confession detailed the sequence of events leading to Sarah's death with a disturbing calmness. The suspect described how an argument erupted, escalating into a physical altercation. He recounted how he overpowered Sarah, his words matter-of-fact, devoid of remorse. The sheer brutality of the act stood in stark contrast to his detached tone. He explained how, in a moment of blind panic, he silenced her forever. The details were graphic, disturbing, and difficult to hear, even after so many years. He had strangled her, ending her life in a remote location far from any help. Following the murder, the suspect detailed his desperate attempts to cover up the crime. He described driving Sarah's car further down the planned route to give the impression that she was still traveling. He then abandoned the vehicle in a public area, hoping it would be attributed to a simple case of abandonment. He meticulously wiped down any surfaces he might have touched, trying to eliminate any trace of his presence. He then returned to his own life, carrying the weight of his secret for 3 decades. Based on the confession, law enforcement officials launched a new search of the area indicated by the suspect. This time, they were successful. They unearthed Sarah's remains in a shallow grave hidden deep within the dense undergrowth of a wooded area. The discovery was a somber moment, confirming the truth of the suspect's confession and bringing a definitive end to the decades-long mystery. The suspect's confession was meticulously verified. Forensic evidence recovered from Sarah's remains in the surrounding area corroborated his account. Witnesses who had interacted with the suspect around the time of Sarah's disappearance were re-interviewed. Their recollections, combined with the new evidence, solidified the case against him. The pieces of the puzzle, scattered and fragmented for so long, finally clicked into place. The truth, buried for 3 decades, had finally surfaced. The weight of this truth settled heavily on everyone involved, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of violence and the enduring impact of loss. Sarah's bright future, full of promise and adventure, had been cruelly stolen. The pretrial hearings were a flurry of legal maneuvering, a chess match played with Sarah's memory as the prize. The defense team, sharp and well-prepared, filed motion after motion, attempting to suppress evidence, challenge the validity of the confession, and question the methods used by the cold case unit. They argued that the DNA evidence was circumstantial, that the confession was coerced, and that the media attention had irrevocably prejudiced the jury pool. The prosecution countered each motion with meticulous precision, presenting legal precedents and expert testimony to support the admissibility of the evidence and the integrity of the investigation. Each hearing was a tense battle, a microcosm of the larger trial to come, with both sides vying for every possible advantage. The judge, a seasoned veteran of the bench, presided with a calm demeanor, carefully weighing the arguments and issuing rulings that would shape the course of the trial. Jury selection was a delicate dance, a painstaking process of selecting 12 individuals who could set aside their preconceived notions and render a fair and impartial verdict based solely on the evidence presented. Hundreds of potential jurors were summoned, each subjected to a rigorous questioning by both the prosecution and the defense. Lawyers probed their backgrounds, their beliefs, and their biases, searching for any hint of prejudice or predisposition that might sway their judgment. The process was long and arduous, filled with legal challenges and strategic considerations, but ultimately, a jury of 12 individuals was chosen, a group of ordinary citizens entrusted with the extraordinary responsibility of deciding the fate of another human being. The opening statements marked the official commencement of the trial, the moment when both sides laid out their respective cases for the jury. The prosecution, with somber resolve, painted a picture of Sarah, a vibrant young woman whose life was tragically cut short, and presented the evidence that pointed to the suspect's guilt. They spoke of the DNA evidence, the confession, and the recovered remains, arguing that the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrated the suspect's involvement in Sarah's disappearance and death. The defense, with equal conviction, presented a narrative of doubt and uncertainty, challenging the validity of the evidence and arguing that the prosecution's case was based on speculation and conjecture. They portrayed the suspect as a victim of circumstance, someone who had been unfairly targeted and wrongly accused. The opening statement served as a roadmap for the trial, a preview of the evidence and arguments that would be presented in the weeks to come. Witness testimony formed the heart of the trial, a parade of individuals taking the stand to offer their accounts of the events surrounding Sarah's disappearance. Forensic experts presented scientific evidence, detailing the DNA analysis and the findings from the recovered remains. Law enforcement officers described the investigation, the evidence they had gathered, and the suspect's confession. Character witnesses testified about Sarah's life and the impact of her disappearance on her family and friends. Each witness played a crucial role in building the case, adding layers of detail and perspective to the story of Sarah's life and death. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as each witness took the stand, their words carefully scrutinized by the jury, the lawyers, and the media. 667. The courtroom held its breath. Every eye was fixed on the jury as they filed back in, their faces unreadable. The weight of the past 30 years hung heavy in the air, a tangible presence felt by everyone present. Sarah's family, who had waited so long for this moment, sat rigid, their hands clasped tightly together. The suspect, a man who had lived under a cloud of suspicion for decades, sat expressionless, his fate now in the hands of 12 strangers. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the courtroom clock, each tick amplifying the unbearable tension. Finally, the foreperson rose, holding the verdict in their hand. In the case of the People vs. Suspect's name, they began, their voice clear and steady, on the charge of murder in the first degree. A wave of emotion swept through the room, a mixture of hope and dread. The foreperson paused, taking a deep breath before continuing, "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty." A collective gasp filled the courtroom as the word guilty echoed through the space. Sarah's family erupted in tears, a release of decades of pain and uncertainty. A sense of justice, long delayed, finally permeated the air. The suspect remained impassive, his eyes betraying no emotion as the reality of the verdict sunk in. The victim impact statements followed, each one a testament to the devastating impact of Sarah's loss. Her mother spoke of the emptiness that had consumed her life since her daughter's disappearance, the constant ache of not knowing, the stolen moments that would never be. Her father recounted the dreams he had held for Sarah, the milestone she would never reach, the legacy that was tragically cut short. Her siblings shared memories of their sister's laughter, her kindness, and the profound void her absence had created in their family. Each statement was a poignant reminder of the human cost of the crime, a powerful condemnation of the suspect's actions. The suspect, who had shown no remorse throughout the trial, remained silent as Sarah's family poured out their hearts. His reaction, or lack thereof, only deepened the sense of injustice felt by many in the courtroom. The community, which had rallied around Sarah's family for decades, also expressed their relief and gratitude for the verdict. It was a moment of collective catharsis, a step towards healing after years of unresolved grief. News of the verdict spread quickly, rippling through the small town and beyond. People gathered in homes, in cafes, and in public spaces, sharing their reactions and reflecting on the long and arduous journey to justice. The initial sentencing hearing was scheduled for a few weeks later, giving Sarah's family and the community time to prepare for the final chapter of this tragic story. The prosecution announced their intention to seek the maximum penalty, arguing that the brutality of the crime and the suspect's lack of remorse warranted the harshest punishment. The defense, on the other hand, argued for leniency, citing the suspect's age and lack of prior criminal record. They also attempted to downplay the evidence, claiming that the confession was coerced and the forensic evidence was circumstantial. The judge listened attentively to both sides, weighing the arguments and considering the gravity of the crime. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on their shoulders, knowing that their decision would have a profound impact on Sarah's family, the community, and the suspect. The quest for justice had reached its final stage, and the world watched with bated breath, awaiting the ultimate outcome. The sentencing hearing was a somber affair. The courtroom, once buzzing with the frenetic energy of the trial, now held a heavy stillness. Sarah's family sat in the front row, their faces etched with a mixture of grief, exhaustion, and a fragile sense of hope. They had waited 30 years for this moment, a moment where the person responsible for shattering their lives would finally face justice. The prosecution presented their arguments, emphasizing the brutality of the crime and the devastating impact it had on Sarah's family and the community. They spoke of the years of anguish, the birthdays and holidays without Sarah, the constant gnawing uncertainty that had haunted them for decades. They argued for the maximum sentence, stating that anything less would be a disservice to Sarah's memory. The defense, on the other hand, pleaded for leniency. They spoke of the suspect's age, their remorse, and the possibility of rehabilitation. They argued that a life sentence would serve no purpose other than to punish, and that a lesser sentence would allow the suspect to contribute to society in some way. It was a difficult argument to make, given the heinous nature of the crime, but they presented it with conviction. The judge listened intently to both sides, his expression unreadable. He had presided over the trial with impartiality and fairness, and now he faced the daunting task of determining the appropriate punishment. He spoke of the need to balance justice with mercy, and the importance of sending a message to society that such acts of violence would not be tolerated. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the judge delivered his sentence. He sentenced the suspect to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. The sentence was met with a collective sigh of relief from Sarah's family and the community. It was not a victory, but it was a measure of justice. It was a confirmation that Sarah's life had mattered, and that her killer would be held accountable. The long-term impact of Sarah's disappearance and the trial on her family was profound. They had endured unimaginable pain and suffering, but they had also shown incredible resilience and strength. They would never fully heal from the loss of Sarah, but they could finally begin to move forward, knowing that justice had been served. They would dedicate their lives to keeping Sarah's memory alive, and to supporting other families of missing persons. The community also began its slow process of healing. The arrest and conviction had brought a sense of closure, but the scars of the past remained. The town had been forever changed by Sarah's disappearance, and it would take time for the wounds to fully heal. But with the support of one another, they would rebuild their community and create a future where such tragedies would never happen again. There were legal implications, too. The case shone a light on cold case procedures, highlighting the need for better funding and resources. In the end, while the sentence brought a measure of justice, it could never truly replace the loss of Sarah. Her absence would always be felt, and her memory would forever be cherished. But her story would serve as a reminder of the importance of hope, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. After the trial concluded and the media attention began to subside, a renewed interest emerged, this time focusing on the suspect's past. People wanted to understand how someone could commit such a heinous act, and the search for answers led investigators and journalists to dig deeper into the suspect's life, long before Sarah Collins ever entered the picture. The initial focus was on the suspect's childhood and upbringing. Researchers meticulously examined family history, seeking any clues that might shed light on the development of such a disturbed mind. Interviews with distant relatives and old family friends painted a picture of a complex, often troubled, youth. Some recalled instances of unusual behavior, while others spoke of a seemingly normal upbringing. Piecing together these fragments of the past became a crucial part of understanding the present. Investigators then turned their attention to any early warning signs that might have been present. They looked for behavioral patterns that could have indicated a propensity for violence or criminal activity. School records were scrutinized, and childhood acquaintances were questioned about any instances of aggression, cruelty, or antisocial behavior. While some described the suspect as quiet and withdrawn, others recalled unsettling episodes that, in retrospect, seemed to hint at a darker side. These early signs, previously overlooked or dismissed as mere childhood quirks, now took on a sinister significance. The suspect's relationships and social interactions were also placed under intense scrutiny. Investigators sought to understand how the suspect formed connections with others and whether there were any patterns of abuse, control, or manipulation in their past relationships. Former romantic partners, friends, and colleagues were interviewed, and their accounts revealed a history of strained relationships and difficulties with intimacy. Some described instances of possessiveness, jealousy, and controlling behavior, painting a portrait of someone who struggled to maintain healthy connections with others. Law enforcement also revisited any previous encounters the suspect had with the law, no matter how minor. Arrest records, investigations, and even simple allegations of misconduct were examined for patterns and connections. It turned out there were several incidents, previously dismissed as youthful indiscretions, that now raised serious concerns. A history of petty theft, vandalism, and even a prior accusation of assault painted a picture of someone who had been on the fringes of the law for years. As the investigation deepened, a hidden side to the suspect began to emerge. Secrets and behaviors that were previously unknown to those around them were brought to light. Old friends and neighbors came forward with stories of clandestine meetings, strange obsessions, and a general air of secrecy surrounding the suspect. It became clear that the person they thought they knew was only a carefully constructed facade, concealing a much darker and more disturbing reality. This hidden life, revealed piece by piece, offered a chilling glimpse into the mind of someone capable of unspeakable acts. This glimpse helped, somehow, to explain the previously unexplainable. The resolution of Sarah's case sent ripples far beyond her immediate circle. It touched other families grappling with the agonizing uncertainty of missing loved ones, offering a complex mixture of emotions. For some, it rekindled a flicker of hope, a fragile belief that their own searches might one day yield answers, that their years of unanswered questions might finally find resolution. They saw in Sarah's case a testament to the enduring power of persistence, a reminder that even decades later, the truth could still emerge from the shadows. However, this renewed hope was often tempered by a stark and painful reminder of their own unresolved pain. Sarah's story, while ultimately offering closure, served as a mirror reflecting their own ongoing anguish, their continued existence in a state of limbo. The joy of resolution for the Collins family was a poignant counterpoint to their own enduring uncertainty, a reminder of the miles they still had to travel, the questions that still haunted their every waking moment. Support groups and advocacy organizations, often the lifelines for these families, found themselves in the spotlight. These groups, staffed by volunteers and often fueled by the experiences of those who have lived through similar tragedies, provide invaluable assistance. They offer a safe space for families to share their stories, to find solace in shared experiences, and to access resources and support that might otherwise be unavailable. They advocate for policy changes, raise awareness about the issue of missing persons, and tirelessly work to keep these cases in the public eye. The increased media attention surrounding Sarah's case, and others like it, served to elevate public awareness about the prevalence of missing person cases. It highlighted the fact that these are not isolated incidents but a widespread issue affecting communities across the nation. The hope is that this greater awareness translates into increased vigilance and a willingness to report suspicious activity, creating a safer environment for everyone. Sarah's case, with its eventual resolution after so many years, also prompted important discussions within law enforcement agencies. Many departments began to reevaluate their procedures for handling missing person cases, particularly those that had gone cold. This included implementing new technologies, improving communication between agencies, and allocating more resources to cold case units. The goal was to ensure that future cases are handled with the utmost diligence and that no stone is left unturned in the search for answers. The community, too, learned a valuable lesson in vigilance. Neighbors became more attuned to their surroundings, more willing to report anything that seemed out of the ordinary. The tragic circumstances of Sarah's disappearance served as a stark reminder that everyone has a role to play in ensuring the safety of their community, that even the smallest observation could potentially make a difference in a missing person case. Beyond vigilance, there were discussions about implementing more comprehensive preventative measures. These ranged from improved safety education programs in schools to increased awareness campaigns aimed at preventing abductions and other forms of violence. The hope was to create a society where such tragedies become less frequent, where young people can travel and explore with a greater sense of security. The story underscores the importance of open communication within families, teaching children about stranger danger, and empowering them to seek help if they ever feel unsafe. This increased awareness, spurred by the resolution of a decades-old mystery, offered a small measure of comfort amid the pain, a hope that Sarah's tragedy might prevent future disappearances. Sarah Collins, though tragically lost, left an indelible mark on the hearts of those who knew her. Even in her absence, her spirit lived on, a beacon of hope and inspiration to those who learned of her story. Memorials and tributes sprung up in her name, testaments to the profound impact she had on her community. A park was dedicated in her honor, a place where children could play and families could gather, a living embodiment of the joy and laughter Sarah had brought into the world. A scholarship fund was established in her name, providing opportunities for young women to pursue their dreams, just as Sarah had once aspired to do. Community projects were launched, initiatives aimed at making the world a better place, reflecting Sarah's compassionate and caring nature. Her family, forever scarred by the tragedy, made a conscious decision to share Sarah's story. They wanted to help others, to raise awareness about the importance of justice and closure for families of missing persons. They spoke at conferences, sharing their experiences and offering support to those who were going through similar ordeals. They participated in documentaries, recounting Sarah's life and the devastating impact of her disappearance. They wrote articles and gave interviews, determined to keep Sarah's memory alive and to advocate for change. Through their tireless efforts, they transformed their personal tragedy into a powerful force for good. Sarah's story became an inspiration to many. People were moved by her adventurous spirit, her unwavering optimism, and her zest for life. They saw in her a reflection of their own hopes and dreams, a reminder that life is precious and should be lived to the fullest. They were inspired to pursue their passions, to take risks, and to make a difference in the world. Sarah's story became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss, hope can still endure. She became a symbol of hope for other families of missing persons. Her case, though heartbreaking, demonstrated that even after decades of uncertainty, justice can still be found. It gave them the strength to keep searching, to keep advocating, and to never give up on the possibility of finding their loved ones. Sarah's story reminded them that they were not alone, that there were people who cared and who were willing to fight for them. It offered them a glimmer of hope in their darkest hours, a belief that one day, they too might find closure. The enduring impact of Sarah's life extended far beyond her immediate circle. Her story served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of staying vigilant. It sparked conversations about safety, about awareness, and about the need to protect vulnerable individuals. It prompted people to reevaluate their priorities, to cherish their loved ones, and to appreciate the simple joys of life. Sarah's legacy lived on, a reminder that even in death, one person can make a profound and lasting difference in the world. Her tragic disappearance served as a catalyst for change, inspiring acts of kindness, compassion, and a renewed commitment to justice. The resolution of Sarah Collins' case, while bringing a measure of peace to her family and community, serves as a stark reminder that countless other missing person cases remain unsolved. These unresolved disappearances leave countless families trapped in a state of perpetual uncertainty, clinging to hope while grappling with the agonizing absence of their loved ones. The pain of not knowing, the constant questioning, and the lingering possibility of a tragic outcome create an emotional burden that is almost unbearable. Each day is a struggle, each year a testament to their unwavering determination to find answers. These families deserve our support, our empathy, and our unwavering commitment to helping them find closure. There are many ways to contribute to the effort of solving missing person cases. Financial donations to organizations dedicated to assisting families and supporting investigations can make a significant difference. Volunteering time to help with searches, distribute flyers, or provide administrative support can also be invaluable. Sharing information about missing persons cases on social media and within communities can help raise awareness and potentially generate new leads. Even small acts of kindness and support can provide comfort and encouragement to families who are enduring unimaginable pain. Technology plays a crucial role in solving cold cases, offering new tools and techniques that were not available in the past. DNA analysis has revolutionized forensic science, allowing investigators to identify suspects and link them to crime scenes even decades after the fact. Online databases and facial recognition software can help match unidentified remains to missing persons, providing closure to families who have been searching for years. Advancements in digital forensics can help recover deleted data from computers and cell phones, potentially uncovering crucial evidence that was previously lost. The continued development and application of these technologies offer hope for solving even the most challenging cold cases. Persistence is key in the search for missing persons. Law enforcement agencies, families, and volunteers must never give up on the pursuit of answers, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Cold cases can be reopened and re-examined with fresh eyes, new technologies, and renewed determination. Witness accounts can be re-evaluated, evidence can be reanalyzed, and potential leads can be pursued with vigor. The unwavering commitment to finding the truth, no matter how long it takes, is essential for bringing closure to families and justice for victims. Empathy and compassion are essential when interacting with families of missing persons. It is important to acknowledge their pain, validate their emotions, and offer support without judgment. Avoid making assumptions or offering unsolicited advice, and instead, listen with an open heart and a willingness to understand. Simple acts of kindness, such as offering a listening ear, providing a meal, or helping with childcare, can make a significant difference in their lives. By showing empathy and compassion, we can help these families feel less alone and more supported during their difficult journey. There is hope for the future. Advancements in technology, increased awareness, and growing public support are creating a more favorable environment for solving missing person cases. With continued dedication, collaboration, and innovation, we can bring closure to more families and ensure that no one is forgotten. The search continues, and with each step forward, we move closer to a world where every missing person is found and every family finds peace. Sarah Collins' name, once a whisper in the wind, now echoed with a newfound resonance. Her story, a tapestry, woven with threads of hope, despair, and ultimately, justice, served as a stark reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit in the unwavering pursuit of truth. The decades of uncertainty, the gnawing questions, and the crushing weight of the unknown had finally yielded to a resolution, a bittersweet victory carved from years of relentless investigation and unwavering determination. The case of Sarah Collins, the young woman who vanished without a trace on a road trip in 1997, had reached its end, but the echoes of her life and the lessons learned from her disappearance would continue to reverberate through the community and beyond. Remembering Sarah meant more than just acknowledging her tragic fate. It meant celebrating the vibrant young woman she was, the dreams she held, and the impact she had on the lives of those fortunate enough to know her. Her adventurous spirit, her infectious laughter, and her unwavering kindness were not erased by the passage of time. They lived on in the memories of her family and friends, a testament to the enduring power of love and the resilience of the human heart. The lessons gleaned from Sarah's case were multifaceted, revealing the fragility of life, the paramount importance of justice, and the unwavering strength of hope, even in the darkest of times. The resolution of Sarah's case brought a profound sense of closure to her family, offering them a measure of peace that had eluded them for decades. The ability to finally lay her to rest, to have answers about what happened, and to see justice served was a cathartic experience, allowing them to begin the long and arduous process of healing. Closure, however, was not merely an end. It was a new beginning, a chance to move forward with a sense of purpose, honoring Sarah's memory by living lives filled with love, compassion, and a commitment to making the world a better place. The tragedy of Sarah's disappearance had cast a long shadow, but the triumph of justice had illuminated a path forward, a path paved with remembrance, resilience, and a renewed appreciation for the preciousness of life. As we reflect on this gripping case, we cannot help but acknowledge the tragedy that befell Sarah, but also celebrate the power of justice and the human spirit that ultimately brought her story to a close. The search is over, but her memory will forever live on. If you found this story compelling and want to support more true crime content like this, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more important stories to light. Click on the video on your screen now to explore another gripping case that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Don't miss it. Thank you for watching.